everyone, and welcome to Science Lab. The signs are happening because Jesus is coming. Every day, we're looking at some of the end-time signs happening around us.
Today, we are going to look at some of the end-time signs happening in Europe. Iran seized 2 British tankers in the Strait of Hormuz on July 19, 2019, in what Britain described as a hostile act. The seizures show that Iran will continue its aggression until it is met with a firm response. Few see where the response will come from.
One of the tankers, the Mesda, was later released after threats from Iranian authorities. The other, the Stena Impero, is still being held. Stena Impero is Swedish-owned but British-flagged and registered. None of the sailors on either ship were British citizens.
Cargo companies often register their ships in nations other than the country in which their business is based for tax and regulation reasons.
Iran's move is seen as retaliation for British seizure of one of its tankers in Gibraltar on July 4, 2019. The Iran's vessel was on its way to deliver oil to Syria in violation of Europe's Union sanctions. When the Iranian forces tried to seize the tanker British Heritage on July 10, 2019, HMS Montrose was in the perfect position to intervene. With weapons pointed at the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps board, it ordered them to turn away and allow the tanker, flagged under the Isles of Man, to freely transit the strait. The Iranians complied. This time was different. HMS Montrose received Stena Imperio's distress call, but it was an hour away. The Iranian compelled the capital of Stena Impero to change course. Video later surfaced of the Iranian forces rappelling onto the deck from a helicopter, tactics similar to those British Marines used to seize the Iranian tanker at Gibraltar. The British tanker had been in international waters, exercising the right of passage granted by international law. Therefore, Iran's actions amount to piracy. British Defense Secretary Penny Mordaunt called the seizure a hostile act, but this time the Royal Navy was unable to do anything about it. According to the Member of Parliament Tobias Ellwood, the Royal Navy is too small to do anything about the seizures. Ellwood said that the first step is to try and deescalate the situation. Facing the nearly impossible task of safely escorting all British afflicted vessels through the strait, politicians and defense officers have turned to diplomacy, even though Iran refused to engage in any meaningful diplomacy.
Iran has repeatedly fabricated cover stories to justify its actions against British tankers. It claims that Mesda was violating environmental rules and Stena Impero was causing trouble. In various Iranian accounts, the tanker is accused of turning off its global positioning system, colliding with an Iranian fishing boat and ignoring the subsequent distress calls.
Iran was taking advantage of British weakness at a difficult time. The nation was fixated largely on Brexit and choosing a successor to Prime Minister Theresa May. As a result, Iran believed it will be able to get away with its belligerent actions.
Those actions can also be seen as a warning to the United States. Iran is attacking the US primarily ally, clearly believing the consequences will be less than if it were to threaten American interests directly. Iran's seizure to the British tankers on July 21, 2019 created yet another notable spike in oil prices, the second such spike this month. EU nations have joined in issuing statements condemning Iran's aggression. These nations have good reason to be concerned. The Strait of Hormuz is the single busiest passage for oil transport in the world. In 2016, 18.5 million barrels of oil per day passed through the strait. This is more than the Strait of Malacca, which was used by China, Japan, Singapore, and other Southeast nations. Any disturbances in Hormuz would affect the entire world, especially nearby nations in the Middle East and Europe. A total blockade, even if it were a limited time, would cause an enormous spike in the price of oil. Iran has the power to close the strait temporarily using sea mines, speedboats, swarms, anti-ship missile batteries, and other weapons and tactics. Attacks on tankers bring to light a key attribute of Iran's foreign policy, its pushiness. This word summarizes Iran's strategy in the Strait of Hormuz. Its Revolutionary Guards will keep pushing to find the limits of the US and its allies. Iran will find that limit, but the relation will come from an unexpected source.
And at the time of the end shall the king of the south push at him, and the king of the north shall come against him like a whirlwind, with chariots, and with horsemen, and with many ships, and he shall enter into the countries, and shall overflow and pass over. We read about this in Daniel chapter 11, verse 40. The king of the south, mentioned in the Bible, is radical Islam led by Iran. It will push at a German-led Europe, known in Bible prophecy as the king of the north, and we are beginning to see Iran push more and more.
Bible prophecy shows that Iran's pushing will soon provoke Europe. Given how many ships pass through the strait to European ports every day, one of the next ships seized could be from an European nation.
By singling out British ships, Iran is targeting both the EU and the US at the same time. Iran is prophesied to continue pushing its boundaries, and this will lead to war.
The world is about to plunge into what God calls the Great Tribulation, the worst time of suffering in man's history. Thankfully, this time will cut short before mankind is made extinct. We read about this in Matthew 24, verses from 21 to 22.
Now it's time for the trivial question of the day. The question is, who is the new president of the European Commission?
Option A, Angela Merkel, Option B, Theresa May, and Option C, Ursula von der Leyen.
We'll find out the answer after a short break.